Hello. Hi,
Hello.
everyone. All right. So I always am so awkward about starting these things, but just making sure that everyone can hear us and see us. I see Leticia, Safa, Vero, Jessica. Someone is trying to call me right now to okay, decline. Sorry, you guys, there's a lot going on tonight. Okay, before we start, first of all, thank you so much to Mogi, who is joining us today. Mogi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. We were talking like 15 minutes before this. I'm honestly a little frazzled, and I feel like, if anything, I've probably put you in somewhat of a frazzled state as well.
No, not at all.
But
Today has been
okay,
fast
good.
with me too.
Good, good, good. I'm happy to hear that. So today we're going to be talking with Mogi about batching as well as other topics. I mean, really, like, I bet you could talk about that for an hour if you wanted. But
I
a
know.
lot
I'm all about operations right now. Like it's just
of
completely the frame of mind I've been in for like the past month and a half. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm excited to talk about it with someone who's
Good,
you know.
good. Yeah, and I
And,
think, like, the busier your life gets, you need those systems in place in order to, like, have any sort of sanity. So I did want to give everyone a heads up, though, about some stuff that's going on. So I am here with you guys, and my husband is also in a Zoom meeting. He's doing like a Bible study right now. And my kids, I was going to take them to my brother and sister-in-law's place, and they were going to hang out with their kids. But there were some different things that happened. So we've got two meetings going on and kids hanging out. So you might, hear some kids run in and need some attention and different things like that. So just a heads up, I have also told Mogi ahead of time so that if I have to leave for a second, she said she is comfortable holding down the fort. But I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that that's what's going
yeah.
on right now. But yes.
And I hope y'all are okay with that. There might be an instance where I'm just talking at you, and I love that. I can do that all day.
Yes,
So,
yes.
I might be in that situation, but
No. So, I
cool.
mean, if that's the case, I think people are, if anything, just more blessed to have more time with you. But um,
Oh, yeah, man.
no, it's going to be
Hopefully.
great. So they're doing good right now. I don't hear any like screaming or crying or,
Yay.
diarrhea or anything like that. So we'll see what happens. Yes, mom life summers 422 for sure. Okay, so if you guys are just hopping on, first of all, welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here. I am here with the beautiful and just super like amazing Mogi. And Mogi, first of all, I feel like I've been following you for a long time, and I have just been so blown away watching your growth, not just in your reselling business, but even like on all your social media platforms. Like, it's been astounding to see. Like, I feel like something happened, a flip switched, and then all of a sudden you just exploded. So can you talk to us a little bit about kind of, maybe, I feel like that all kind of happened for you within the last like half year, maybe past year. And I have to imagine that a lot of that was intentional, like it was purposeful. I don't think these things usually happen by accident.
Yeah.
So maybe just talk us through what this last like 6 months to a year has been like for you.
Yeah. So that's exactly right. Is that, I mean, I think the growth that we've experienced has been kind of exponential. So it took a while for it to start to, take off, but now we're in the takeoff mode because I've been doing this for almost 4 years, a little under 4 years. And so, in the beginning it was very, very slow. Then it started going, faster and faster. And that's true, especially with the reselling stuff. When it comes to Instagram and YouTube and the social media side of things, I mean, YouTube has been pretty fast. Like, I started taking YouTube seriously in September of last year. And so, but I just want to say that, and I can talk about like reselling wise, where we're at operations wise, because that's what we're going to talk about. But Becky, like, there in this like reselling community, there are some people who, like, when you succeed, they kind of like get in the comparison game and they get in their head. And then there's some people who really cheer you on or like super excited for you. And you have been one of those people, and it's really been meant the world to me. Like, honestly, so I could cry, but
oh my goodness.
It really means the world to me. You have a heart of gold. So,
well, thank you.
And I've been a fan of yours forever, so
thank you.
Meant all the more to me.
No, I think, that's something that, so for those of you who may not know, I think most of you do know, but I am a full-time high school choir teacher, and I see Nick in the chat. Nick was also a choir nerd. I love it.
Oh,
But I know he told me that. He was like, wait, you teach choir? That's so cool. I sang all throughout high school. But something I tell my kids all the time, because I think so many of them put their stock in, this kid is really good. Like they have a really good voice. And this and
oh
that.
my gosh.
And I'm like, but you know what? At the end of the day, it is not about who's the most talented. It's about who's going to outwork who, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, yes. And that's the only thing I want those kids to really leave my program with, is that idea of like, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, if you look at people like Britney Spears, like, I don't really think she's like amazing, but I think at that time she just outworked everyone else around her. And so I think, and then there are like the people like Adele and Beyonce who like, they have the talent and they have the drive, they have the ethic, right?
They both. You have to,
both. And I feel like you're definitely that, you know, like I think you have the like the talent that it takes to be a reseller, like, but you also have the desire to do the work that it takes, you know, and it can be really easy. And I have to admit, if I'm not careful, it can be really easy to get into that petty place of just like, like she's doing this and that, whatever. But at the end of the day, like I cannot help but admire people who are going to work their butts off to achieve, you know, their goals and their dreams. So, I mean, nothing but admiration for you, because you really have been killing it. And it's awesome.
Thank you. Well, it's really, I mean, the word that I resented for a lot of my life, because whatever, for whatever reasons, but I'm really grateful that I've been given is discipline. Like it takes any amount of achievement takes a massive amount of discipline, where it's consistency and just showing up even when you don't want to. And that's like, I dread every time I have to shoot a YouTube video. I don't enjoy it.
Really?
Which is kind of weird, but because I have so much perfectionist anxiety, it's just like, oh, am I good enough? And I just have to force myself to just show up. The same goes for reselling or anything, you know, it's just showing up even on the days when you'd rather just sleep in and do nothing. And I think when you're full-time, that's really hard.
I can imagine. Like, probably the most beautiful thing about being full-time is that you don't have a boss looking over your shoulder and micromanaging you. That's also the hardest thing, I imagine, is you have to be your own boss. Like you have to be the one that's like, get up and do it, even though I don't want to. So let's talk about that really quickly, because I'm probably butchering this name. I'm so sorry if I am, but Madonko from my Facebook group asked, when did you know you would resell full-time and kind of reach that point of no return?
Yeah. So I actually resisted it for a really long time, even though I loved it, because I was just couldn't really see how it would be viable or feasible, or how I could like really achieve the goals I wanted in my life through that. And so I actually got my real estate license over the summer 1 or 2 years ago, and 2 years ago, I guess. And then I went to Posh Fest after in that fall, and I was like, oh my gosh, no, I can do this. Like, I want to do this. I love this. I'm going to give myself this opportunity. And so that's kind of how it happened, because I was already self-employed, through real estate. So it wasn't a huge transition, but I was soul searching, trying to figure out what am I going to do with my life. I had a mental breakdown, all of the long story of my life. So that's kind of how it went. I just took the leap of faith.
Yeah. So Posh Fest really happened at like the perfect time, it seems like, for you.
It's crazy because I have a love-hate relationship with Posh Fest, but the first one really pushed me to go full-time. The second one really, honestly, brought me out of like one of the deepest states of depression I'd ever been in. And so it's like, it's been pretty transformational. And so
good.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, I look back and I'm like, dang, it's just funny how that works.
Yeah.
And funny how I kind of trash talk it, but it's been it's been so helpful in my life and just been really massive. I can't even remember.
I've never been. I was pretty close to going last year, but I mean, it's usually in like October, right? And that's like a pretty bad time for me with my full-time job. So I was like, the responsible thing to do is to not go. But I kind of highly doubt that there will be one this year, but I know I was like, the next one I'm going to go. So it's such a random question. Have you ever sold like a house or like done anything with your real estate license?
So I kind of, yes and no. I wasn't like a active real estate agent for other people, but I did kind of like a lot of referral work, and then I sold some of my own investments or my family's investments.
Yeah.
So yeah, yes and no, but not a lot. I never really went full time real estate. It was like I got my license, was doing some stuff for a couple months, was like, I hate this. Why am I doing this? And then I was Posh Fest, and I had already been reselling for part time for a long time. So, and I had been renovating my house too, but that's all.
Oh, fun. I know. I feel like if I had, more than 24 hours in a day, I would love to also be Joanna Gaines and like also do the other stuff, right? Like,
well, they make it look a lot easier.
Yeah. You see, they wrap it up nicely in like a 54-minute episode, and you're like, oh, that's not that bad. Like, I know I could do that. Yeah. No, it's ridiculous.
I mean, unless you want it.
Yeah. So taking it back then to when you started, because I think a lot of the people who are watching right now, and also a lot of the people who are your audience and my audience, people in my Facebook group, I think a lot of people are starting out pretty recently, or they've been at it for, not that long. Do you remember looking back what some of your struggles were, or maybe some mistakes that you made when you first started reselling? And what have you learned, and how have you grown from those things?
I made so many mistakes. I need to make a YouTube video, just like all my failures. I mean, I had a massive failure this one. I continue to have massive failures along the way. And that's, I think, really important to continue to do, but learn from. But I mean, I spent the first year I was reselling, I spent the majority of the time sharing and congratulating host picks, follow gains, like all the things that basically are just massive time sucks in Poshmark. And I mean, oh my God, I was a host. Wait, I've never told this story, but I just, one horrible mistake I made one time. I was a host of a party on Poshmark.
Those are such a time suck too, being the host.
Like, I felt like immense honor. I was like, but now looking back, okay. And then I had picked out all my host picks. I was so excited. I had shared them all throughout the 2-hour period. And then at the last, like 5 minutes, I was like, okay, I'm done. I guess I'm going to go share my closet now. Go to my closet and start sharing.
Oh my God.
And I shared all to the party. And you're only allowed to
have host picks
of your own.
Yeah.
Shared like half my closet. They never asked me to be a party host again.
I mean, maybe you subconsciously did that on purpose so that you wouldn't be asked again.
Yeah, just self-sabotaging. Like my subconscious was just like, we should not be doing this.
Oh my gosh, that is really funny. As soon as you started that last part, I was like, I know where this is going. It's going to be awesome. So funny. Yeah. And I think it's really, I think people see you now and they see, the numbers that you're posting and they see the success, and it's hard for them to remember that you didn't like start reselling that way. So
it's funny because I've started getting a little bit of backlash against those numbers, and it's just, I mean,
did you really? That's stupid.
Well, you get backlash on anything on YouTube, and people want you to be more transparent. I understand, but it's just, I think this has happened so quickly. Like I'm in such a massive growth stage that it's like, I'm literally figuring this out as I go. Like every day I'm faced with new challenges where I have no idea how to handle. And a lot of times I screw up majorly. And that comes with YouTube. That comes with having employees. That comes with, scaling this reselling. Like this reselling operation is now scaled just this month to like levels that are just unprecedented for me. Like we're gonna list 800 items this month, and that's like way more than I ever have. So,
that's amazing, though.
Yeah. So I'm messy. It's hard for me to want to show that messy side. I don't know how to show that messy side. I'm still figuring it out. It's like, but I think YouTube does paint a picture that I have all the answers, and I very much don't. I'm just learning what I know thus far,
Yeah. But, and I think, like you said, this is like your 4th year right now.
It will be my 4th year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even that, I think, some people, again, are going to compare themselves to you, but they've only been at it for 4 months or,
there's so many new resellers.
Yeah. Which
is exciting.
Yeah. So with this tremendous growth that you are experiencing right now and that you're in the midst of, how are your like business tactics or just, all things business related, how are things changing? How are things evolving? What changes are you making to keep up with this scaling that you're doing?
So what really I spent so much time doing in June is, if we're talking about batch working, I looked at each batch of the work and really audited my process, and then got rid of any kind of extraneous activities that I was doing within it, and then also just trying to reduce inefficiencies, because this is the thing, like whether it's just you, whether it's you and one other person, whether it's you and two other people, what the resource you're going to have the least amount of is time.
Yep.
And especially if you're part-time, I think like that's very, part-time people work the hardest, first of all. Like, I just don't even.
I would agree with you, no, joking, but yeah, I mean, it feels like that.
Yes, often, I mean, you have very, very limited time. And so you can only there's only so many ways you can become more efficient. And at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to cut back on inefficiencies, and that's a little bit different.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah, so we looked at each batch of our work and created training manuals, wrote it out, and then saw, okay, where are the discrepancies, and had other people look at it, had Matt look at it, who's really not that familiar with reselling. People think he's like a full-time reseller. He's not. He honestly does not know the reselling. Yeah. But he looked through it, and gave his opinion, like a consultation, and I think just taking a step back and really coming to terms with, okay, these are the exact steps of each process. And so if someone were to come in, I wasn't there, and they were to just read these training manuals, they have a pretty solid idea of what we do here. And that was hard. Like, especially since for 3.5 years, I've just been doing it all on my own. It's just lived in my head. To communicate that and to put it down on paper and to systematize it and to make it so that it can scale. Yeah. It was a pretty big undertaking, but I think we're in a good spot now. But I'm so excited to have this conversation because
I know it's such an interesting thing to want to nerd out about. But I think this is the kind of stuff that makes all the difference. Like, this is why your business is growing and why other people's just aren't, So let's break down a little bit of what you said. You talked about the idea of auditing your process. Or auditing your time. Can you break that down a little bit and explain that, just in case people don't know what you mean by that?
Yeah, I watched your batch video last night. I was like up at 1 a.m. I couldn't sleep, so I was thinking about all these things. Yeah, I'm sure Becky just made it. Anyway, so and it was so good because it really did just this. It looked at like each step of the process, because like every reseller, there's like 4 or 5 steps, batch work part, and just really breaks it down based off of the tools that you have, because your schema is different than mine. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I would have never even thought about, basically ordering your items by the material. Oh, yeah. That was like, maybe I need to integrate that. But anyway, it's just looking at each step of your process, whether it's processing or steaming or photographing, inventorying, I think is a big one, listing, and just really looking at it from taking a step back and looking from this perspective of, if I were asked to be a consultant in this business, and I were to give my advice on to how to increase efficiency, and I had to do that, they were paying me to do that, what would I say? I think another good way to kind of think about it, if you want to kind of shrink down to like what's the most essential tasks, so I think a lot of us do a lot of non-essential tasks in business, is like, if you had to do 100 listings in a day, what would be the first 3 things you'd cut out? And then maybe you keep them in long term, but you really put them under a microscope and say, okay, do I really, really need these things? And in what form can I simplify these things if I do? Yeah.
I think Jessica asked a perfect question kind of on this point. So she asked, what is an example of one of the inefficiencies that you cut? And I know a lot of people talk about, well, you've talked about sharing, right? Like in your huge Poshmark, like 5 tips that every Poshmark seller should know. You've talked about like people stop sharing. And you even said, like, don't share my closet, like don't share anyone else's closet except for your own. But what other kinds of inefficiencies did you find while you were auditing your time and creating these systems that you were like, oh, this can go, like this is not helping me?
Well, one that's controversial, that was a big one for me, was measurements. I cut out measurements entirely.
You did. Okay.
And at the bottom of my listing, I say measurements by request, upon request. And if people request measurements, then at the same time that I go to do pull shipping, I'll pull those things. And I store my items just like you do in plastic Ziploc bags. So
very cool.
They come out and in pretty easily. And I will measure things every day at the same time that I ship. So I worked it into my system. You know, any time that you remove a certain element of your business systems, there are going to be costs involved. So you know, the cost is, are people not buying anymore because they don't have that information readily? I'm sure there is a percentage of that, but I think just the amount of time we get back from cutting it out and the amount more listings we can do because of that outweighs it. So it's really like a cost benefit analysis.
And I think it's also because you've created a good system for, you know, if people are going to ask for measurements. That's the reason I do include measurements, is I despise pulling things to get them. I honestly 9 times out of 10 just won't do it. Like they'll be like, can I get and I don't do all the measurements in the world, right? So if they're like, can I get the shoulder, like the sleeve length, right? If they're like, can I get the sleeve length? I'm like, okay. And like, usually I just like won't even do it because I'm like, this sucks. Like they're not even going to buy it. But I like how you built it into, I'm just going to pull it when I'm already at my, you know, inventory station and I'm already pulling stuff anyway. So that is genius. I love that. But I mean, I still am in the camp of do measurements, but I mean, everyone does what, you know, works for them. So.
And I think another inefficiency I wanted to talk about is, and you talked about this in your video a little bit, is flaws. I'm much more willing to list things with flaws now, just because the cost benefit analysis again of like, is it really worth my time to stage treat this? If I might make $10, $15 more, but it's going to take me 10, 15 minutes. Like that's, to me, not worth it. I mean, and to some people, it might be worth it. It's just constantly trying to figure out, you know, whether something's worth it. And for really expensive items, it is. But for some cheaper items, no. I'll either list it, send it, you know, give it to Crossroads, see if they'll take it, whatever it is.
For sure. That's how I feel about shoes. People spend a lot of time cleaning shoes, and I'm like, I'm like, people know that these are used, and they're gonna get dirty again, like right away. Like,
I know, like the before and after pictures of cleaning shoes. I'm like, dang, that's really impressive. But how long, dude? I mean, it's time. Time is precious, and that's why I think it's so important to put a value on your time and like really track your time and say how much is an hour of my time worth. And then start factoring that into your cost of goods. And then soon you'll see like, okay, maybe it doesn't make sense to spend 30 minutes on this one pair of shoes, you know?
That's so interesting. So, okay, I want to go back to what you were talking about before when you were talking about you went through the process of doing all of the different reseller tasks and you basically created like a training manual. Like you wrote out step by step, this is how you do this. This is how you do that. Talk to us about that process and what you gained from it, as well as like maybe how long it took you to go through that. I imagine if I had to do it, I'd be like, this is such a waste of my time. But like, it seems like obviously like what you gained from it is, you know, it proves that it wasn't a waste of time. But yeah, how long it took, like what you've gained from it and why you think that's a valuable thing to do.
Yeah. So I actually think it's super valuable whether you plan on hiring employees or not. But, and there's a really good book on this, and I talk about it all the time. It's called The E-Myth by, I think it's Robert Greene or something. It was written in the 80s, but it's so still pertinent today. I think it's super important for resellers, but it's just the idea that any business you create, you should create it as if you're planning to franchise it. And so that it's not dependent on you. And so that if you want to one day step away from it, you can train people to do the tasks you do. And because And that, I mean, reselling is like, some people are like, and that's not for me. But I think doing that also just makes you look at what you're doing much more critically and with the lens of, okay, how can I just maximize my time? And so what I did, so I hired my first employee. Their name's
That's exciting.
like the best first hire I could have ever had.
Oh, good.
Just out of this world. And so I trained them with from my just brain. I was like, you know, throwing stuff at them and hoping it stuck because I really had, it was really the first time I communicated all aspects of the business to somebody. And I was like, wow, I'm so scatterbrained. I'm so unorganized. I have so much to learn when it comes to management and communication, which is funny because I got a degree in organizational management, and I have like, I'm, you know, learning it very different than doing it.
Yeah, but that's a perfect like skill set to have going into reselling, I feel like. But anyway, I'm sorry, keep going.
Yeah, it's proving to be helpful, but it's just doing it is much harder than it sounds.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, so they became really good at it and really picked everything up well. So we worked on the training manuals together. And I had them kind of create a first draft, and then I would go through it and do my things. And then we'd come together and say, oh, actually, and it was actually a really good tool because I could see the places in which I hadn't really communicated what I was expecting. But also it was like, okay, we put our brains together. Actually, like, how do we do this? And what do we do in this instance? And okay, if you find something with a flaw that is, you know, beyond repair, what do we do with that? And, you know, all of these different scenarios in which I had previously not really had an answer for. I just like put it in a pile and forget it. But now having to report, I feel like having an employee, I now kind of have a boss in the sense that like I have to report to someone, I have to show someone, someone relies on me. So I now me saying I'll put it over there is not good enough. And I think it has given me such a huge relief at the long run. It was stressful going through all that and creating answers and solutions and systems for all those various things. But yeah, it's like, it's now actually starting to feel like a business that could run without me if I left for 6 months.
Yeah. So I imagine that for a while there, then it probably felt very, what's the term I'm looking for? Like grassroots. I feel like that's how a lot of resellers feel, right? Like, it's just kind of like, I'm going to like figure it out as I go. Like, we'll just stick Band-Aids on things that are, you know, and now it seems, I can't really think of a better word than like corporate. Like, it feels a little bit more corporate in the sense of just like, there are things in place, there are systems in order. Was that like the shift you wanted to go in, or
I feel like there's like tiers to reselling, and not that one's better than the other. So they're like horizontal tiers or different groups, I guess. There's like hobby reseller, there's a reselling as a job, whether it's part-time or full-time, and then there's reselling as a business. And then, so I feel like this year I made the jump from a job to a business, and as I brought Matt on board and then an employee on board, it forced me, and I fought tooth and nail because I was like, this is my baby. I've been working so hard on this. I don't want to, like, my day-to-day looks completely different now. And I didn't want to let go of a lot of that stuff. So yeah, making that transition was intentional. It was, it was, this isn't, I don't want my day-to-day, when I had children, I think about this a lot. I don't want my day-to-day to be like reselling. That's just me. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I want to be able to make money and like have the freedom of time. And reselling is just a grind. It's a hustle, you know? It's hard to scale without other people. And so it was like, okay, well, I've got to start making changes now if we're going to make that happen. Yeah,
this is the perfect time to do it. It's hard to juggle, like, oh, we have a family now, and we're trying to also give birth to a new business. And,
like having a baby and new employees for the first time would be
it doesn't go hand in hand. No. Do you watch the show Parks and Recreation at all, or have you?
I used to.
There's one part where something that you said reminded me of Leslie Knope. Like, it's like, I think in the last season where she's up for a spoiler alert. If you have not watched the whole season, that's on you though. It's been out for a while. But I think in the final season, she's being asked to work for like the national park, whatever, right? And she just doesn't want to let go of the little things. She doesn't want to take, she doesn't want to let go of like doing the paperwork and like the nitty gritty that she used to do when she was just working for like the parks department. But when you're able to let go of that and realize you're going to be assuming bigger responsibilities, you're going to be overseeing, your employees, you're going to be scaling to degrees that you never thought possible, then it's like, okay, I'll let go because I've created systems in place where someone else can take over those things. And I'm going to achieve some things that I didn't even know were possible,
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Mm-hmm. And I think I was watching you and Courtney last night, and she said, I've managed people in the past. I don't want to do it again. And I was like, I get that, because it's a different role entirely. It's you're not really reselling anymore. You're managing, and you're managing a business. You're managing employees, and I had to grieve reselling kind of in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The nitty gritty, like you said.
Yeah.
And I used to, like, when I was first on Instagram, I was pretty kind of like, why doesn't everyone want to grow to be big? Like, I don't get it. Like, y'all have bigger dreams, blah, 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 blah. And like, I get it now. Younger Morgan, you had no idea. And so if to just have reselling as a job, it's like such a cool thing and such like an amazing opportunity that really wasn't available, one generation ago, 2 generations ago, maybe. And so I never want to downplay the significance of that, but I do think it is cool that I think it's interesting now for me to see how much I can scale this. Like, what are the limits? Because I don't really see a lot of women. I mean, there are a few, but like having $1 million reselling businesses, like I don't know if that's even possible, but for someone like me, but that's kind of where I'm at. Is let's see where this goes.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is, Courtney and I talked about it a little last night, that there are like these huge sellers out there.
Yeah. They're just not on YouTube.
They're just not on YouTube. They're not on Instagram. They're not chronicling it for the world to see. So I think that's why what you're doing right now is just very unique in that, like you said, there aren't a lot of women out there, 1, doing it, and then 2, like doing it for the world to watch and see. Yeah. And like you said, it's going to allow for some people to whatever, like
people have opinion. As soon as you put your life out there, everyone's got an opinion, but and that's part of it, and that's fine. I think that's the beauty of it, because maybe people can look at me and go like, I can do better than that, and maybe they can. That'd be cool. Yeah.
And then also, I think for some who are just starting out, they can look and see like, that's what it could look like in X number of years, that's really exciting. Okay, I have like a list of questions, but I'm not like super organized in my time.
No, this is good. I mean, I hope I'm not talking too much.
Well, this is supposed to be all about you, so you should be talking more than I'm talking. Really quickly, if you guys are just joining us, we do have Mogi here from Mogi Beth. I'm going to throw up her information on here really quick. She does have Oh yeah, no, you're good. She does have the same handle both on YouTube and Instagram, and just is putting out really good content, like really helpful content, not just like fluff, but like every second of each video, like you're gonna, it's there to like teach you stuff. So it's really good. I did want to come back to, so you were talking about how now you're just in like a really different position in life, if you will. Like you're not necessarily the reseller doing like the nitty gritty, but you are like the manager to a certain degree. How are you enjoying that? Like, so I know it kind of sounded like a little bit, you're like, but I mean, how do you feel stepping into that role? Is it growing on you? Is it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just, this is, my grandma was an entrepreneur and she managed, I don't know how many people, a lot of people. And so I had that's what I always wanted for my life. I looked up to her growing up. And so, it's just finally, I feel like now coming into that, I mean, I don't have many employees, but I feel like having employees is really forcing me to grow much more quickly than previously. And it's, growth is challenging and growth is hard, but it's so important. And it's very humbling on a daily basis, just like being very humbled, because there's so much that I need to improve on. There's so much that, I am learning as I go. So I think, although I still call myself a reseller because reselling is my business. And I think being able to look at it from more of a wider, angle lens rather than just being, microscopic focused gives me some kind of interesting perspective now. But yeah, I rarely, steam clothes now. I don't mind entirely. But I also
would love to give that away.
Just listen to podcasts all day either, which I kind of miss. But it is what it is. Every day is a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm so proud of how much you've grown. And it's really inspiring. And, I think encouraging for some, to know that if they work hard enough, like this is what's possible. So I'm going to go into some questions. And like, I feel like we didn't really like talk about batching that much, but like, however you want to get back into it, like it's really all about systems. And I think that's what a lot of these questions are about. But so Lori from my Facebook group asked, do you have daily or weekly listing goals, and do you relist? And if so, how long do you wait? And I think this is you can talk about batching and stuff with this too.
I would love to hear your, because I'm sure you talked about this before, but just maybe some people also would be curious, what is your relisting strategy? Because this is something I'm definitely rethinking right now.
I hate relisting. I hate it with all of my heart. And so I have things in my closet that have been there for probably like 2 years. And every day I'm like, that's cool. And I just like keep, because you see and hear those stories on Instagram. People are like, I just relisted this and it just sold again, or it just sold like in 2 minutes of me relisting it. I'm like, cool. So I'll like try it on 10 things and like nothing. So I'm like, I think that this item honestly just sucked from the beginning, but I don't want to admit defeat. So it's going to stay there and it's just going to keep, I feel like on eBay, I'm better about it because eBay kind of like they shove it in your face a little bit more. They're like, this listing is ending. What are you going to do about it? So I'm like, I guess I'll end it and sell similar, like I think eBay is a little bit more like forthcoming in that way. Poshmark, I don't know. I do have a project I want to do when I'm done with this week of lives. And I don't know if you follow, I think it's Hyper SoCal. I don't remember, but their Instagram has like a lot of like funny memes and just ridiculousness. I love it. But one thing that they talk about on there a lot is like, I think they say that they relist their entire Poshmark closet once a month. And I was like, wow, interesting. So I actually,
items.
I think that they said they have over like 500-600, I think. So, and like they say it's like, lucrative for them in that first, like, so I kind of want to just try it. And I feel like too, it'll be really good in that moment to just like look at everything and just like fix any flaws. And I know there are like typos here and there, I'm sure, in like my listing titles. And then also, one of our shared viewers pointed out to me, she's like, how come you keep pricing things at $24? Like you should price them at $25. And then I watched your Poshmark, like 5 tips. And I was like, I know where you got this, girl. I'm like, thank you for sharing this knowledge with me. So now I want to go back and everything that I have priced at like $24 or $48. Through. And, so I feel like there would be value in that. But generally speaking, I only have a schedule for it. I will end and sell similar on all of my eBay listings on a daily basis. Poshmark, they have made it easier, but man, I still stink at it. So
I mean, I don't really do any of it at all. I did have within my reselling career, I have, but I think it's valuable. Just the fact that a lot of people shop just on Poshmark. eBay, I'm a brand new eBay baby. Like I'm still growing my legs, so I don't really fully understand it yet. But Poshmark, I do see the value in it, and so I have a full-time virtual assistant now, and so
awesome.
So my next hire will be another virtual assistant, I think, and they'll do cross listing, but I might as well have them do relisting as well. But it depends on really if there's again, the cost benefit analysis, like, is it worth
Yeah.
it? I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be a good experiment.
For sure. And then In Style Thrifts on Instagram asked, and it kind of goes along with this, how long does it usually take for an item to sell for you? And I think, you tend to sell more like high-end items. They're a little bit more expensive. So yeah, like, what do you think is your average time frame that you're sitting on those items?
So this year it's been about 45-ish days.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah. So
especially for more expensive things.
Yeah. I think I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
Some things definitely sit longer, but I also try to get a lot of high demand items. So a lot of reformation, baseball jeans, and then I don't buy a lot of, like, I think the items that really sit for a long time that are like investment pieces are the higher end designer pieces, which I don't really like. I kind of, dabble in, but I'm not an expert in it at all. So people ask me questions about like authenticating stuff. I'm like, not my territory.
Yeah.
I really specialize in the kind of mid-tier luxury. So like the Veronica Beards and those kind of brand, those brands.
Yeah. I tried to dress as Mogi as I could today. We don't
it's
really
super
have.
cute.
Thank you. We don't
I
have
love the
very
sleeve.
similar. I know, that's why I was thinking of your Ula Johnson shirt, and I was like, we don't really have like a super similar aesthetic when it comes to how we dress, because I can't pull this off very well. But I was
you look great.
Well, thank you. I'm wearing shorts underneath this dress because that's the kind of girl I am. But I was like, I feel like she would appreciate this. So,
well, people think I dress up all the time. I had overalls on all day today.
I know.
When I do YouTube, that's the only time I really get to dress up a little bit. So
yeah. On that note, someone asked, I'm trying to see who it was. Let me ask it first, and then when I see who asked it, I will throw it out there. Oh, okay. Amy and Joanna, they asked something along the lines of, what sources do you learn, or what sources do you use to learn about, you called them like mid-tier luxury brands or whatever, like how are you studying up to see not only what demands a high price, but also what is popular and what people are willing to spend that kind of money on? And is that something that's kind of built into your schedule, doing that research,
Yeah. I think for me, it's something that I'm just interested in. And so the research is just like what I used to do in my free time anyway.
Yeah.
And that is, I really like to kind of hone in on what my ideal customer would be, and then where they're shopping. So to me, my customer is someone who usually live in a major city, and they like to shop at Revolve, Shopbop, maybe occasionally Net-a-Porter and Forward, those types of places. But they can't always afford it. So they're on there, like me, on my free time, adding to the shopping bag and then never purchasing.
Waiting for it to go on sale.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. I've been there.
So they're on there, they're like, oh, I would love to have this stuff. Well, let me check Poshmark and see if there's a cheaper alternative. And that's hopefully, what I'm able to provide. And so they're not as price sensitive. They're not the deal hunters. They're not the people looking for the cheapest, deal out there. And there's definitely a segment of that on Poshmark that, is a good segment. But in a large segment. But so I just kind of live the life they live, in the sense that I go on Shopbop and I just scroll through, learn about brands, check it out on Poshmark. That's really the number one way I do it. And then I'll also follow, vloggers or Instagram people, but I've been doing less of that recently just because I don't have time. But those are the two main ways. And it's just because I enjoy it. But I think if you do set aside time, that if you don't enjoy it or it's not part of your everyday anyway, then it's good. It's a good reason to just sit back with your coffee and scroll.
I think that's good. I think, like you said, just kind of as you take on more responsibility, I feel like when I was younger, and especially when I was single, I loved going to Barnes and Noble and just reading those trashy magazines and seeing what all the celebrities were wearing. And that's how I would learn, oh, these are the in brands. And I feel like since I've stepped away from those like hours just mindlessly spent at places like that, just, you know, looking at magazines, I'm like, what are you buying? Like, I don't, you know, I just feel like an old grandma, but you have to like find the time to make, you know, to research what is worth picking up. So
yeah,
I think that's really helpful.
So my number one is just like literally go on Shopbop and I'll just scroll. And it's usually like at night when I'm just tired and I don't want to think about anything. And I just pretend I'd play the game if I had $10,000 to spend and just fill it up. And
that's a fun game. That's I like that.
Yeah.
Better Barbie asked, you know, she said, you don't list a lot of measurements. You may have just joined us, but she said she puts like at the bottom of her listing that she'll provide measurements upon request. So yeah. But okay, another question from, I think it was from the Facebook group, and this is from Lori. She asked, what programs do you use to track and analyze every facet of your business? And I'm definitely super curious to hear this too.
Well, I use the super high end tool. No, I'm just kidding. It's I use Google spreadsheets Google Sheets. And I think Google Sheets is the number one tool I use in my business. When it comes to tracking projects and stuff now, I'm using Monday.com. I just got the new 14-day subscription, and I actually really like it. But when it comes to the reselling side of things, I really do everything on Google Sheets, and I'm really meticulous about it. I used to track so many unnecessary data sets and data points, and Courtney talked about that last night. It's just that I think over time I've really honed in on what are the kind of critical factors that I need to keep an eye on in order to understand what's working, what's not. But I think it's a good practice that like once a year you set aside, you know, a couple days to really analyze like what worked for me this year and what didn't. But otherwise, you know, day to day, I really just use Google Sheets, and I have a spreadsheet that I've made. What do you use?
I'm not even sophisticated enough to be on Google Sheets.
You use Excel.
I use Excel.
I heard that in your video. I'm like, she needs to go.
I know, but I mean, I literally only like do inventory on this one computer, you know. But soon, I mean, this computer is dying a slow death, and so we're waiting for the new iMac to come out. And when it does, like, I'll probably have stuff in two places. Like trying to upload YouTube videos on this, I'm just like, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's crazy. So I know, and it's so easy to just like, just copy and paste and throw it all on Google Sheets. Like I use it on a daily basis for like other things, and I don't know why. Yeah, I just use.
Well, we use so many Google Sheets. Like every time when we process, when I brought people on board, I had to change everything because now one person who's photographing and checking for flaws and everything, and one person listing. They are two different people and two different, you know, one's virtual, so they're not even. So now every week we have a weekly manifest, and everything we're listing is on that manifest, and all the flaws, all of the, you know, material, product details, the cost of goods, what we're listing it for, the inventory number, it's all on there, and then it gets integrated into our main inventory sheet once it's listed. But it's Google Sheets is like,
it is pretty amazing. Like it's pretty amazing that that's a thing, you know.
And that we can all work on it at the same time.
Crazy. No, like I don't have people helping me in that way, so my Microsoft Excel is okay for now. But I definitely.
So like when you were saying like you write down, you know, your shipping numbers, I do is I am like Google Sheet. I can just put it into a different sheet, and I can pull it up on my phone because I have Google Sheets on my phone, and then pull it that way, and it's so much faster.
That's smart. Okay. Also, on the topic of me being like really old and just like not very tech savvy, I feel like Google Sheets does not work on my phone. Okay, you and I will talk about this later. We'll have to troubleshoot because I'm just like anyway. But if I could,
do you have an iPhone?
Yeah, I do. So I don't know, but that sounds like another wonderful way to save time and be more efficient. So that sounds wonderful. Okay, we're gonna take a question from someone. This was a great question. I've been holding on to it. Megan asked, "What is your advice on transitioning from a bread and butter, quick, cheap sales business model to more luxury?"
So first, I need to preface by saying one is not better than the other.
Mm.
There are advantages and disadvantages to each. But I think if you wanted to, it's really, really important to do your research when you are focusing on higher end pieces, because the brand is really not enough. Like, you've really got, because if you're going to invest in these more expensive pieces, you've really got to understand consumer demand. And so I would, if you are making that transition, literally set aside 30 minutes every day to not only look through ShopUp, like I was saying, but also look through comps on Poshmark. Go to, click the price filter 50 to 100, 100 to 250, sort by just in and solds, and just immerse yourself in those brands and those styles, because that's what that customer is looking for. And so that would be my advice. And then also, I think if you are trying to figure out which one is best for you, do what I talked about earlier, which is just put a value on your time and start to see, like, which brands, which price points are really worth it for me. Because the thing about the more expensive pieces is that where you live, it might take too much time to find those pieces. Yeah. And that's a major consideration. I lived in Wichita, Kansas, so I get it. Like, most of my reselling career was in Wichita, Kansas. And so I think you've really just got to figure out, where can I leverage my time, best, in what category. And once you start putting a value on your time, then I think it's easier to kind of figure that out.
Yeah. And I think you touched on something really important too. Just the idea of sometimes you want to transition into something else, but maybe it just really isn't feasible given where you're at, or given, just a lot of different things. Yeah. And I remember when you did first, you're in Portland now. Yeah. So I remember when you first got there, you were like, guys, the stuff I'm finding.
I know. Like, people complain about the prices here, but I am willing to pay $14.99 for, Alexander Wang. Like, any day.
Like, and that's a very real thing, I think for some people, like, I know that's yesterday, Courtney and I talked about, like, just comparison being the thief of joy. And I think that's one of the things I struggle with sometimes is I'll see people's hauls and I'm like, that's cool. Like, I have a lot of American Eagle jeans waiting for me, but, like, but it is what it is. Like, you get what you get. You don't throw a fit. That's what they teach, preschoolers. And it's like, if you can't change that situation, if you can't get up and move to Portland, then you just have to work with what you have. And there are options too. Like, I know people have asked me to ask you, within the pandemic and all of that, have you been doing a lot more like online sourcing, or have you just been sitting on a stockpile of stuff? How's that been going for you?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is some of my really great flips in that mid-tier luxury area come from ThreadUp or the Real flips. And so there are ways to integrate it. It might not be if you live, in Derby, Kansas, it might not be like your entire closet, unless you're willing to just shrink your closet to smaller, like, select curated pieces, which would be a cool business concept. But but you can integrate it. There are definitely ways to integrate it. And I think sprinkling in those pieces can be really interesting. Keep your, closet interesting too, by just doing online sourcing. I think that is, necessity is the father of all invention, or whatever. This COVID has forced us to all be a lot more innovative with our sourcing. And I think I've learned a lot by doing TechUp and the Real and, different things like that. Yeah. Online retail arbitrage. I will say online retail arbitrage is the hardest way to source. Yeah. And so be very, very, very careful when you do that.
I feel like, I don't remember I think it was you that talked about this in a video, like an older one, or like a long time ago, or maybe it was on your Instagram, just about how you had picked up a ton of online arbitrage and now you were regretting it. You were like, I spent so much.
Oh my gosh, yeah. January of 2018 or 2019.
Okay, so
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I mean, and I saw too, like on Instagram, and I was so thankful that this person posted this, because I didn't really take that plunge with retail arbitrage because I was really scared. But she was like, look at all these MM LaFleur pieces I got, retail arbitrage. But guess what? It's been this many months not a single one of them have sold. And I was like,
oh, wait, who was that?
Simply Olea. Yes, I don't know how.
Simply Olea.
Yes, yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, I was so thankful that she put that up there, because I was like, I've been wondering, like, and I'm assuming that everyone's just killing it with all their retail arbitrage stuff. But, you know, I mean, it's hard because everyone's kind of doing the same thing. And
And I saw Paula make a similar post. It's like, it's the shiny object, you know, that like everyone's doing it, and it's the hardest thing to do. And it's easy to do it when no one's doing it. When everyone's doing it, it's the hardest. So that is one piece of advice that I'm trying to really, when people turn left, turn right, you know, if you have the opportunity, because you know, that's when you see everyone moving toward a certain sourcing strategy, it might be worth looking at what's being ignored. And you know, so that's it's I think transparency is really can be really valuable when it comes to especially that type of topic.
For sure. Okay, we have to shout out New England Betty Boop. Thank you so much. So I'm doing a thing this week with all of my guests, and I told them, I mean, I'm not expecting like tons of super chats or anything, so don't feel pressured. But I said, if we get any, I'd love to donate the amount that people, you know, donate with these super chats to a charity of your choice, and I'll match that donation. And Mogi also wants to match that donation as well. So why don't you talk to us really quickly about the charity that you chose, or the foundation?
Okay, so I chose the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, and for obvious reasons, hopefully, if you've been paying attention to what's happening in this country, what's been happening since our founding. And I think it's, you know, I talked about this in one video, or I've talked about Black Lives Matter. I've tried to talk about Black Lives Matter in a little bit in every video, but in one video, I just went into more detail about how I personally am trying to navigate this, because this is like the biggest human rights violation in my mind that's happening in this country, and has happened for so long. And I think if we view it that way, we all have a duty and responsibility to show up. And so it's hard when you're, you know, like someone like you who's a full-time job, a part-time job, and all these things, and I, you know, have all these new responsibilities as well. But I donate to NAACP every month now, and I think I kind of think of myself as a cog, and I want to be a cog in the right machine. And so this is, I think, my way of being able to do that. And I am constantly trying to educate myself on this, but I don't think, you know, just changing me is not enough. This is the way I can kind of contribute to making real systemic changes, because that's what's in all aspects of life, whether it's healthcare, education, criminal justice. Like, you know, I think your conversations around that is a prime example. So,
thank you.
Anyway,
yeah, no, it's awesome. It's a great cause. So thank you so much, New England Betty Boop. And thank you so much to, I think she said yesterday that it's Veronica with a K. That's what it is in German. That's what she said yesterday, which I thought was so cool. So it is a great cause. And it is, I'm so thankful that you are speaking out about it. I know a lot of people have talked about how when they speak out about it, there is going to be some backlash, or, you know, you're throwing your thoughts out there. And some people want to say, like, you shouldn't be political. And I'm like, well, I don't think I'm being political. Like, I think
it's not politics.
Yeah, I'm like,
and if you're jumping to think it's politics, you're missing the human rights piece of it, the humanity piece of it.
Yeah. And so I think it's really brave of you, one, to make sure that that's a conversation that you're continuing to have on your channel, and that you are, you know, trying to help other people, like, you know, that you're even using your channel as an opportunity to teach people, not just about reselling and clothes and stuff, but about the things that like really matter, you know, like equality.
Well, it's because I'm not an educator in this, Beth, and I have way more to learn, and I've been so ignorant, and I've made so many errors in my judgment around these things, and just like being silent and not really, you know, showing up or educating myself. And so I'm not a leader, but the last thing I want is for my content to create a distraction away from the important stuff.
Yeah.
And so if I can just interweave it a little bit into it, forces you to not zone out from it.
I love that. Yeah. So Audrey Brown, thank you so much for the $1.99 towards the NAACP fund as well. And Mari and SC, I'm assuming that I shouldn't assume that stands for South Carolina, but I feel like it does. But and for that $9.99 super chat, oh my gosh, okay, they're just like all coming in now. You guys are amazing.
Yay!
This is why I don't like talk about it at the beginning, because again, I don't want to like pressure people, but I do want you to know that your money is going to a good cause and not to fixing my roof that I do think needs to be fixed, but we will use money for that. Yeah, it's bad up there. So Christina, Nick, Jacob, you guys are
for Black Lives Matter.
Yay. Seriously. And I think it's, like you said, it's just being kind of like creative about ways that we can continue to speak out about things that are important to us. And I think that's great. Thank you so much, Lori. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I got in trouble yesterday, but I know that there are a lot of you in here who want to ask Mogi a bunch of questions. So if you have questions for her, we'll try to do like a speed round, because I want to also respect her time, because I told her we'd be here for an hour. And I'm also super impressed with my kids right now who have not screaming it.
Wow.
I know. So we can't count on them to be that good for that long. But I'm going to kick us off with a question that someone asked on from the Facebook group that I thought was so funny. But this is from Alicia. She said, "What shampoo do you use? Your hair always looks so pretty and healthy."
Wow.
So we'll start with that. And then the rest of you, if you have questions, drop them in the chat and we will try to have Mogi go through those.
That's insane, because my hair is the least healthy of like anyone's hair ever, but I don't even know. A TJ Maxx shampoo I got somewhere. I'm like, I don't ever get manicures. I haven't gotten a haircut in 2 years. I'm like, really, I don't take care of myself in that way very as well as I should. But thank you. And the funny thing is, if you watch my earliest YouTube videos, because I went back and watched them, it was right after like at least 50% of my hair had fallen out. And my hair is so thin. And it's just like, anyway, that compliment is just really is nice. Because I've been in a place where my hair was like a major insecurity for me. So thank you.
Well, you've come a long way then. Shouting out really quickly, Sony, and for the $5 super sticker, thank you so much. Amy, Scholarship with Amy R on Poshmark, thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat. And then Text Factor Tracy, please use Black Girls Code.
Black Girls Code is a really good organization too. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so maybe Tracy will take your 20 and specifically throw that towards the Black Girls Code. That would be great.
Becky, you're amazing for doing this, by the way.
Oh,
thank you
no.
so much. And
well, thank you.
I'm inspired and blown away by your generosity. So thank you.
No. I mean, a lot of you know if you've been watching my channel, but I teach, and I teach in a area with like a pretty high low SCS population. And I don't know. I think just knowing that even though I don't have that much, like I have a lot, and knowing that I have a lot, even with just my teaching salary, and my husband teaches too. And like, even though we are not in like the, top 1% or whatever, I see a lot of my students and I'm like, but I have a lot. And there are people out there who don't really have even just the basic foundational things that people should have. And so the super chats are so nice, guys. I honestly don't need them. So it's like, if I can send them along to better causes or organizations. So Joy, thank you so much for the $9.99 super sticker. Stephanie, thank you so much for the $5.
Wow, y'all are amazing.
Catherine, oh my goodness.
Wow.
Thank you for the $19.99 super sticker. And yeah, you guys, these are all going to amazing, amazing causes. And specifically today, $20 to the Black Girls Code, but the rest of this to the NAACP. So, okay, let's get back to some questions. People were like, "Yeah, that's the important question about the hair. We needed to know about the hair." Okay, so Lori Owens wanted to know if you have an opinion on the new A&E show about reselling. It's called Unboxing. I feel like someone mentioned this yesterday, Lori. I wonder if that was you, but I have never heard of it. I kind of want to check it out now that she asked, will it flood community and tons of new resellers?
Wow, I didn't even hear. That's how out of the loop I am. I don't go on Instagram like I used to, like at all, and so I'm out of the loop on a lot of reseller conversations being had. I have known or felt since I started that this is only going to grow. Like the reselling industry is just gonna it's exponential growth inevitably, and that's part of why I actually started my YouTube channel. So I was like, when you've been in reselling for so long, it feels like everything that could be said has been said, and you're like tired of hearing it. But what you forget is there's so many new people.
Yeah.
And they're hearing all this stuff for the first time. And so that we're YouTube educators, I think when it comes to reselling, it's like a really gonna be a viable career. So that's why I keep telling people who are like, I'm gonna start a YouTube. I'm like, in 5 years, if you start today, you'll thank yourself, And you'll be able to help so many people who won't have to make the same mistakes you did. So I think that show is just indicative of that. It's not like they're the reason why reselling is blowing up, but they're capitalizing on the fact that reselling is blowing up.
Yeah.
And you can too if you want to grind away at YouTube.
Yeah. No, none of this is going away anytime soon. Sorry, I just took a note of Black Girls Code $20 just so I don't forget. Okay, next question is, and Dee Nicole, thank you so much. I wanted to shout out your super chat as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Crystal asked, what is the brand that would make you scream internally if you found it in the wild?
Ooh, I've never found Ula Johnson in the wild. I've bought it on the Rail, but I've never found it in a thrift store. And so
you would scream.
I would scream. That and Hatch Maternity. I've been talking about Hatch Maternity for so long, and I have yet to find it in the wild. So
I have yet to even see Ula Johnson in person or touch it or feel it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I actually purchased a bunch on the Rail.
Oh, nice.
None of it actually has sold. So they're like, I have a haul on that, and just for that reason. So I was like, I really just want to get my hands dirty with this brand because I love it.
Yeah. No, but that's awesome. Fun Finds by Kathy, thank you so much. You are amazing. And Maggie, thank you so much as well. You guys are just so generous and amazing. Yeah. Okay. Aaron Pickett said, Mogi, you said that rather than tracking every detail of your sales inventory each week, you're focusing on a few important stats. What are those?
That's a good question. So we're looking at sell-through rate. I think, and how we calculate that is a little bit different. I mean, and we talked about that a little bit in our last video or in our Q&A video. It's just when you're comparing one person's sell-through rate to another's, it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges because sell-through rate is a snapshot in time, right? And so it kind of depends on what snapshot you're looking at.
Yeah.
So we have a specific way of tracking that information. And then we're looking at, profit margin. We're looking at, so what I used to track that I no longer track, I would track the category that it was in, the brand it was, where I purchased it, and one other thing that I kind of scrapped because I can aggregate that data from my Poshmark sales report at the end of the year, and that's what I kind of talked about when I was saying you can do an annual review, but on your day-to-day, what you really need to know is just kind of the numbers and more of the quantitative data instead of the qualitative. So that's what those harder, the ones I really kind of go over in my monthly sales report are the ones that I really focus on.
Yeah, awesome. That's good. And so Zavi also wanted to know the same thing. Kimberly asked, how many home goods do you have in your store and how are your sales with those?
Hi, Kimberly. I don't have any home goods. I actually started out reselling in home goods, vintage home goods on Etsy. Yeah, when I was 16. And so home goods is a great category. It's just, I think if I were to start integrating that, I would have to create entirely new systems. So
yeah, like just storage wise, even.
Yes.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
I look at
Shipping.
people. Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Okay, Songbirdy92 said, what advice do you have for people like me who have only been on Poshmark for a couple of months? I feel like I'm really hard on myself, but I want more sales. I can only do it part-time. And later on, she said that sometimes she gets discouraged. So what thoughts do you have for Songbirdy92?
So I think that's a really, really, really good question. I think my advice would be set just small weekly or daily goals. And actually, here's my advice. Here's my advice. Completely divorce yourself from results for like 3 months. Just like what I make is not important. Focus entirely on what you have control over, which is the listing, sharing your own closet, and cross-listing if you want to do that, creating strong inventory system, creating a good bookkeeping system. Like create those goals over the things you have control over and celebrate every time you achieve those goals. And really, because you're creating the foundation upon which you can build something and the results will come. I promise you. It really feels like, holy moly, like, is this ever going to pan out? And as someone who's been in your shoes before, and Becky, I'm sure you can, everyone who's like been through that beginning phase can attest. It's just, you kind of have to build momentum, and a lot of people give up before they really start, making major headway.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say too, Songbirdy, the season that you started in was
yeah. All the new resellers right now, like, hopefully in a year or 6 months from now, they're like, wow, it's so much easier.
Well, show yourself some grace, because I think everyone is struggling to some degree, regardless of how long they've been doing this, just because there are a lot of things getting in our way of success, like a pandemic.
Are your sales, how are your sales? Because you aren't growing aggressively like I am. So my understanding of where I should be making more sales than I am. Like my calculations are like, no, if it weren't for COVID, I would be making more sales.
Yeah.
But you're fairly consistent, right? So
it's been okay. And I would say, not only is there COVID, it's also July. And I think that's just not,
seasonality.
Yeah. It's just not really like the best time either, I think, as far as making sales. But it has been okay. And I think, I'm not on this like aggressive track of growth, but I have been, because it's the summer and I can, now that I'm not, using up a lot of my energy teaching, I can do more with my reselling than I used to. And so I feel like it has remained steady in that sense, even though the season isn't there, even though COVID is happening, but because I'm putting in more, I'm getting out a little bit more too.
Yes.
So
totally.
Definitely do not be too hard on yourself, because it's a rough time right now. And Ashley, thank you so much for that $5 super chat. And I'm so glad you made a sale using the payout method. That's awesome. That makes me so happy.
Yes.
So,
awesome.
Guys, if you can hear, my kids are going crazy. So, like, literally, my son is crawling on the floor trying to get food. So we are going to have to call it, because it's about to get crazy over here. Logie, thank you so much for being here. Everyone who is here right now, thank you for being here.
Thank you all so much. And thank you so much, Becky. This was a really fun conversation.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. So Logie, stick around if you can for a second. But everyone else, thank you so much, especially to all of you who donated super stickers and super chats. You guys are amazing. And when the numbers come in, it's always a little skewed with these, YouTube super chat numbers and stuff. But when the numbers come in, I will post on my Instagram just the amounts that we were able to donate. And thank you so much for being a part of that. So yay.
Thank you so much, Becky.
The 7-year-old taking out the 3-year-old. So Jody, thanks. Hit that thumbs up on the way out. You guys are awesome. Have a great night. See you later. Bye.
Good night.